At a broader analysis of the situation to bring you Manu Seghal, who's a historian at the University of Birmingham there in central England. Manu, thank you very much for joining us. Can I start by asking, in general, the removal of something like a statue, it doesn't necessarily solve the problem, does it?
No, it doesn't. And perhaps you would suspect that as a trained historian who likes to call himself an expert, you would probably anticipate where I would go with this answer, which is to say that it impoverishes the conversation. It makes it difficult for us to have those very painful and very difficult, but also very enlightening conversations in our classrooms. Many of the people who are protesting in the streets today include our students, perhaps include my colleagues as well. And I believe that rather than swiftly and perhaps angrily moving past these painful chapters, I genuinely fear that we may lose out an opportunity to engage wider audiences, including activists and community members who are understandably angry and would want to do something at this moment.
I have personal experience of the Colston statue in Bristol, the one that was torn down at the weekend. When I was a cub reporter, I did a story about the controversy over that, even back then, and we're going back many, many years. What we saw was anger from genuine people, so shouldn't their genuine hurt and anger be respected? Shouldn't the statues go?
I would unequivocally agree with the first statement. The anger, perhaps it's one way of trying to understand this on a global scale, is a series of local movements and conversations. Some of these, as you quite rightly have pointed out from your own experience, have simmered for a while. So to not acknowledge it, to not make an effort, and that has a history of its own as well, to not engage with that would be a colossal mistake on our part. But as somebody who has studied the history of the East India Company, who has worked on the British Empire, teaches anti-colonialism and nationalism in the Third World, I would say that doing something about it is not the same as swiftly and perhaps angrily moving past these chapters from our shared historic past. I think that would be a mistake. Look, we exhibit materials in museums, in art galleries. We curate content in the cinema. We do it very differently now than what we would have done a generation or two ago. And that has contributions from experts such as myself. If we could make those into learning opportunities, if we could make those into educational resources, why can't we, instead of pulling these statues down from the pedestal, perhaps put them into an interrogation box where our students, where members of the community, where experts such as myself can actually reframe them in their appropriate historical context.
So as you're talking, we're seeing Colston's statue about to be dumped into the River Avon in Bristol yet again. What we're saying perhaps is the statue should be fished out, as they're planning to do, but it should be contextualised properly. The proper story should be told. Yes, philanthropist, but on the other side of it, horrific slave trader. Equally, Christopher Columbus, his statue in Boston, we understand, has been beheaded. The full story needs to be told, doesn't it?
It really does. And the full story involves those painful chapters. So I would appeal, and perhaps this would be a good opportunity to do so, to those very activists who are interested in this sense of historical justice, are interested in their mission to be fulfilled. Expand the conversation. Please do not unwittingly end up agreeing with others, which I know that would perhaps very well be on the other end of the spectrum, who may want to brush past and move swiftly past this chapter of a very painful chapter, perhaps even embarrassing chapter in our history. Don't unwittingly end up on the same side, leaving these perhaps not untouched, but as you have correctly pointed out, recontextualizing them. That would really transform this conversation, and I believe would leave something lasting behind, well beyond the current historical conjuncture.
Cecil Rhodes at Oxford University obviously receives a lot of money from the Rhodes family. Historically, there's the Rhodes Scholarship. The names are almost not synonymous, but clearly linked over many generations. Should the Rhodes statue go? Does the same criteria you've just outlined apply to his statue?
Well, the criteria can easily be expanded, and it comes from existing conversations on either side of the Atlantic in South Africa and elsewhere in the world as well. I come from Delhi. We have a history of unceremoniously relegating imperial statues and public monuments to some corner of our city or the other. It would not be appropriate for me to suggest what another institution does with its own historic past. But it's very easy for me to imagine that any institution could, within its own ethical ambit, could set up foundations to actually study those very chapters, right? To actually turn inward looking and critically analyze their own role. And as institutions of higher learning, I mean, that is our ultimate purpose. At Birmingham, at my university, we do this. We do this. It's a difficult challenge, but then we don't get to call ourselves experts if we can't do difficult things well.
Indeed, if it was easy, everybody would do it, and it isn't, and that's why experts like you take it on. Manu, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Manu Seghal, historian at the University of Birmingham. This conversation will continue, and sir, thank you very much for giving us your opinions here at France 24. We really do appreciate it.